Namaste, Khushrawatiya. I, JVN Dr. Chandrakala, Assistant Professor Jyoti Vidyapeeth, Women's University, Jaipur. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the pollination and fertilization in gymnosperms. So, as we have already discussed about gymnosperms, its characteristic, its morphology, anatomy, reproduction. So, let's see the pollination and fertilization. So, pollen grains are carried to the ovules and this is followed by the fertilization. So the male gametes are carried by the egg by means of pollen tube. Okay. So syngamy or the fertilization between the two haploid gametes, or that we can say male and the female, restored by the polyploidy level of 2n. The male new sporophytes is first represented by the zygote and later develop into an embryo. So the cycle can be completed. So this is a distinct alternation of generation. Pollination in gymnosperms usually takes place by means of wind. And abundant pollen produced ensures the pollination. Most conifers have wings. Pollen and wings will help them in pollen to reach the ovule. In pines, the male cones have it sheds the pollen and the area all around is covered with the yellow pollen grains, or this phenomena is referred to as the sulfur shower. The entomorphily or can be found in and was reported in Cycus, Natum, Wilwichia. The pollination drops is secreted by the ovule at the tip of the micropyle, and it captures the wind blown pollens. So it has a secretory materials which is secreted on the tip of the micropyle, where the pollen tube wind-blown pollens which are flowing in the air get staked. The partially developed male gametophyte are drawn and stuck into the ovules by the dying of the pollination drop. Excluded not only receives the pollen but only placed when close to the nucellus. The pollen now lies in the pollen chamber, or the nucellus is close proximately to the archegonia. In gymnosperm, the pollination may not be immediately followed by fertilization as in angiosperm. Okay. So sometimes a very long interval elapses between the two phenomena. During the intervening phase called the resting phase, the ovule shows many changes and they get ready for the fertilization. Okay. So here the pollination is not immediate followed by fertilization. Okay. It may be undergoing the resting phase or intervening phase. The ovule shows change and get ready for the fertilization. Okay. So the micropyle is closed and ovule enlarges in size. Okay. So the pollen grain on reaching the nucellus germinate or immediately after a resting period. The pollen tube reaches the female gametophyte and finally make contact with the neck of the archegonium. In some gymnosperm, it is well-defined depression forms in the tip of the nucleus, and thus the pollen chamber receives the pollen grain. So the pollen grain produced more or less tubular or outgrowth of the pollen tube. Okay. So in cycas and ginkgo, the pollen tubes act mainly as a pastoral organ. So it grows grows for several months into the nuclear tissues and absorb food and transfer or developing the pollen grains at the low end of the tubes. It also helps in transfer the male gametes into the archegonial chamber. During fertilization, the basal end of the pollen tubes burst and liberate the multiflagellate sperms and some fluid into the cavity. The sperm swims to the archegonial neck and sheds the flagellum and enters the archegonium. The male nucleus fuses with the egg to form the zygote. Okay? So in conifers, the pollen tubes act as a sperm carrier. Okay? So here the pollen male gametophyte along with the tubes are the stalk nuclei migrate to the tip of the pollen tube. So which grows through the nucleus. The pollen tube reaches the archegonial neck and features a burst and liberates the male gametophyte, one of which brings about the fertilization. Okay? So in Welwitschia, we can see that female gametophyte give an outburst prolongation that meet the pollen tube tip. The intervening wall dissolves and the fertilization takes place. So there is no archegonia in Welwitsch and Natum. So double fertilization is absent in Gymnosperm. The only expectation are Epredial and Natum, but even there is an endosperm is haploid. Okay. Thank you. This session is powered by 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. If you have any queries, please write down in the comment box. I will resolve it in the problem solving session. Thank you.